So we're on to the next section, and there's just a couple of sections to go. So this section is about why your morning matters as much as your evening, and I'm going to talk about general kind of good sleep habits for your day-to-day living. So this can also, when I asked you earlier about how you felt at certain parts of the day, this is something that can have what you do on a day-to-day basis really dictates how you feel at those points of the day. So, you know, we've touched on already through these different sections, we've touched on hydration. We've touched on how your bedroom needs to be in order for you to get the best possible ability to sleep well. And also we've talked about it kind of being dark and cool and the toxins and comfortable. But how we eat and exercise and also what we do first thing in the morning really affects how we sleep at night. So in terms of kind of first thing in the morning, we really need a good amount of light, natural light in the morning in order to be able to sleep well at night. So in order for us to wake up, cortisol kicks in, the stress hormone, and that's what wakes us up. And then as the day goes on, melatonin is a hormone that kind of increases as the day progresses. But in order to kind of reset that, really reset that and to get that going in the morning, the amount of light we get is really important. So if you're not sleeping well, the one thing, if there's one thing that you do and you take away from this course is when you get up in the morning, go and stand by a window, open your front door, your back door, and try and get as much natural light as you possibly can on your skin. If you can take a glass of water with you and drink that down while you're stood there for 5 minutes to 10 minutes, that's even better. But that is the one thing, if you don't take anything else away from it, from this, is grab a good amount of light during the day, during the first thing in the morning. And if you can get light during the day, that is also really beneficial because, as I said before, our bodies work on a clock, and we are in tune with the sun. We kind of work, our hormones, sleep hormones work with light and the sun. So as the light gets brighter and then starts to get less as the day progresses, our bodies will come in tune with that, and our melatonin works with that. So getting light first thing in the morning is really important. So the other thing to think about is eating. And I'm not talking about different diets or cutting out things, because I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to do. But eating well, eating whole foods, and making sure kind of your insulin, your sugar levels are balanced is quite important for our sleep. We find that if you wake up in the middle of the night, it can be because your insulin has dropped, and that has woken you up. So really looking at how you eat in order to kind of just be healthy and have that kind of good level of insulin is important. And then exercising. So for some of us, if we exercise at night, kind of like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, that can really affect our sleep. And again, that's to do with the hormones in our body. So the amount of cortisol that's being created. It's also to do with heat. But to a certain point, that can be beneficial for some people, because as soon as you stop exercising, your body temperature will go down. It can take longer for some people than others. And again, this is where the individualistic nature of sleep kicks in as well. Someone who exercises first thing in the morning may find that they sleep better at night or not. Someone who exercises at 9 o'clock at night may find they sleep better at night, or maybe not. And it's all to do with how our bodies kind of process everything. And it's the same for eating. So you may be someone who finds if you have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in the evening, you're able to sleep. And some people find that they can't do that and they have to stop drinking any kind of caffeinated drinks from midday onwards. And again, that's how we metabolize and process everything in our bodies, and everybody is different. So just a quick note on caffeine. It seems to be like the nemesis of sleep, but for some people, like I said, it really doesn't make a difference. I can have a cup of coffee, kind of instant coffee at night, and like 7 o'clock at night, and it won't affect how I sleep as much as I'm aware. But just a note that decaf drinks aren't caffeine free, and they still have caffeine in them. So if you really want to go caffeine free, kind of stay away from the decaf. And also, just to touch on when we're talking about drinks, alcohol as well. So we generally think of alcohol as something that is going to help us sleep, and it does to a certain effect. It helps you get to sleep, but it really is not good to kind of have long term, even if a tiny little bit every single night. And it's not something that is going to help you get good sleep throughout the night. So it disrupts our sleep through the night. And the way that happens is they now know that alcohol takes you straight, it kind of misses different stages of sleep. So it takes you straight into the second or third stage of deep sleep. Excuse me. But we know in order to be healthy and to sleep well, we need to go through every single stage of sleep. Now, for some of us, using alcohol and having a drink every night to relax and helping us go to sleep, over time, if we've done it over quite a number of months or years, our bodies will get to that point where it needs that bit of alcohol to be able to get to deep sleep at all. Like our bodies find it hard to work through that cycle. And that's where the disruption starts to come in, because our bodies can't get to the deeper sleep, the second or third stages of sleep that we need without using the drink of alcohol to get us there. And that is where we can start to see a few problems of where it's a good idea to go and speak to your doctor and get a little bit of help. But that is how this myth of having a nightcap and using alcohol to help us get to sleep, yes, it does. But at the same time, it really can disrupt it. So we've talked about exercise very briefly. What I didn't mention was it is thought it's a really good idea to have at least 2 to 3 hours after you've finished exercising before you go to bed. That is to do with the stress hormone cortisol. It's to do with letting your body temperature kind of reduce if it takes you quite a long time to kind of cool down. And it's just about kind of being in that relaxed state to be able to go to sleep. So generally through our day, what we eat, how we exercise, and the amount of light we get and hydration, which we've talked about before, can really affect how we sleep. We also really need consistency. I've talked about how our bodies work on a clock. Getting up at exactly the same time every single morning, 7 days a week, can really help you get a good night's sleep. Going to sleep, it's good to go to sleep around the same time, but it's not quite as important as when you get up in the morning. So I don't know, if you go to bed between 10 and 11 every night, will be fine if you're getting up at 6 or 7 in the morning. And what we really want to do is we want to allow ourselves an 8-hour window to be able to get sleep. So being in bed for 8 hours doesn't necessarily mean we're asleep for those whole 8 hours, but allowing ourselves the ability to take the sleep that we need within that 8-hour window is quite important. And being consistent with that. As I said before, we are not as spontaneous as we would like to think. Our bodies, our brains, everything likes a routine. Our whole bodies work on a routine and a clock that is pretty much the same every single day. And it's what we put into it and what we do to it that affects how those clocks are working within our bodies. And as our sleep is on a clock, it also affects that. So having consistency is really important. If you are going to make any tweaks or changes to what you're doing, you are not going to see changes straight away. It's very rare to see changes straight away. You need to be really consistent with what you're doing for at least 2 weeks to see any change. For some people, it might take a few days, 2 or 3 days. For other people, it might take 4 weeks. Again, it's that thing that is very individualistic. And obviously the other thing, I've talked about the stress hormone, cortisol. Stress is one of those things in our day-to-day lives that really does affect how we sleep. And that's one of the things that I realized when I stopped commuting to London, that I was jumping out of bed wide awake, but that's because as soon as I woke, I was like, right, gotta get going to get to work on time. And my levels of cortisol were high. It was a rush to the train station. It was a rush on the tube to get to work on time. And then it was making sure that I was getting everything done and rushing through everything and then rushing to get home again, to be able to have an evening. So the amount of stress that we are under, the amount of cortisol we have in our bodies, is really does affect how we sleep, and it affects our day-to-day functioning. The things that you can do to combat that is doing a regular like 20-minute meditation every day just to calm you down, deep breathing, downloading the different apps that are available that give you the meditations or the relaxations to do. If you can do those on a break at work or at some point during the afternoon, that's also a good alternative to having a nap. They're things that really will help you to be able to sleep well. So if you do have a really stressful job, or your day is generally quite stressful, or if maybe you don't think it is, it's worth, if you're not sleeping as well as you would like, sitting down and have a really good think about, actually, is my level of stress quite high? And is it constant? Do I get proper downtime? Do I take time for myself? And if not, how can you change that? And how can you make sure that your level of stress can be reduced and managed in order for you to get a good night's sleep? So there's quite a few things during our day. It's got nothing to do with sleeping, none of them. And they're the things that we can concentrate on and make changes to ensure we have a good night's sleep. So in the next section, I'm going to talk to you about how we can get a good night's sleep during difficult times as well. And that might be through grief, that might be through a really stressful time, through big changes and that kind of thing. But that's what we're going to talk about in the next section.